The battlefield was silent now. Smoke rose slowly into the night sky, carrying the smell of fire and blood. The ground was broken, blackened, and filled with shadows of the fallen. Only the sound of crackling flames and the distant howl of the wind remained. He walked carefully, his boots pressing on the ruined soil. His uniform was torn, his face dirty with ash, but his eyes were sharp, alert. He was a human soldier, one of the few still alive after the brutal clash. His weapon was heavy in his hand, but his heart felt even heavier as he moved through the wreckage. He suddenly stopped. There, lying against a shattered stone wall, was a figure, not human. Her silver skin caught the faint glow of the fires, and her long hair spilled like liquid night around her shoulders. An alien, not just any alien. Her crown, broken and bent, rested beside her. She was a princess. Her eyes were half open, shining like jewels even through the dirt and blood on her face. She was breathing, but weak. When she saw him, her lips trembled, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. He raised his gun out of instinct. She was his enemy. She belonged to the side that had brought death to his brothers, fire to his cities, pain to his people. His finger touched the trigger. One pull, and it would all be over. But he froze. Her eyes filled not with hate, not with pride, but with something else, fear, sadness, a silent plea. She was wounded, fragile, and completely at his mercy. His heart beat louder. The world around him seemed to grow quieter, as if everything waited for his choice. She tried to speak, but her voice was broken, dry like cracked glass. "Don't leave me here." The words were soft, trembling, but they cut deeper than any weapon. He lowered the gun slowly, confused by his own actions. Why? Why could he not kill her? She was the daughter of his enemy, the symbol of everything he should hate, and yet, seeing her broken like this, he could not do it. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. Her breathing was shallow, her body trembling from weakness. She tried to push herself up, but her strength failed, and she collapsed back against the wall. "Stay still," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. Her eyes widened at his tone, not sharp, not cruel, but gentle, a human soldier showing kindness. She had never believed it possible. "Why?" she whispered, her lips shaking. "Why don't you kill me?" He didn't answer. He didn't know the answer himself. His heart told him one thing while his mind screamed the opposite. He should finish it. He should walk away. But something about her stopped him. The silence between them grew heavy. The night air felt colder, sharper. But the fire behind him cast a strange warmth on them both. He crouched down, slowly reaching for her arm. She flinched, expecting pain. Instead, his touch was steady, careful. As he checked her wound, blood covered her side, staining the torn fabric of her royal armor. She was bleeding badly. He looked around quickly, ripping a strip of cloth from his own sleeve. With rough but quick movements, he pressed it against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. She gasped at the pressure, her hands weakly clutching his wrist. Why are you helping me?" His jaw tightened. He didn't look at her, but his voice came low, like another whisper lost in the smoke. "Because I can't watch you die like this." Her eyes softened. For the first time, she looked at him not as an enemy, not as a soldier, but as a man. His face was tired, scarred by battle. Yet in his gaze there was something different, a light she had never seen among her own people. Tears filled her eyes again, spilling down her cheeks. She had been raised in a palace of steel and power, surrounded by warlords and generals. No one had ever touched her with care. No one had ever spoken to her with warmth. And now, here in the ruins, her enemy the human was the first to do so. The moment was fragile, like glass ready to break. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of movement echoed. Enemy patrols, survivors, he couldn't be sure. His body tensed, ready for danger, but his hand never left her wound. "You can't stay here," he muttered, scanning the shadows. "If they find you." Her voice was faint, almost fading. "Then, take me with you." He stared at her, the weight of her. Words struck him harder than any weapon. Take her, protect her. His people would call it betrayal. His commanders would call it treason. And yet, looking into her eyes, seeing the desperate glimmer of life that begged for one more chance, He knew he couldn't turn away. His heart raced. As he slid one arm under her, lifting her carefully into his arms, she was lighter than he expected, her body trembling against his chest. She leaned her head weakly against his shoulder, her breath soft and shallow. For a moment, under the silent stars, they looked like more than enemies, like two lost souls who had found each other in the ruins. As he carried her into the night, the battlefield behind them seemed to vanish into the darkness. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if he was saving his enemy or his destiny, but he whispered to himself, so quiet she almost didn't hear, "I won't let you die." Her lips curved into the faintest broken smile. A single tear slipped from her eyes, landing softly on his chest. And in that moment, both knew their worlds had just changed forever. The night was cold, and the stars above seemed sharp as blades. He carried her through the dark forest, every step heavy with risk. Her breathing was weak against his chest, but he could feel her heart still beating, slow, fragile, but alive. He knew he was breaking every rule of war, a human soldier carrying an alien princess into his own camp. If anyone saw, it would mean execution for him and certain death for her. But leaving her behind wasn't possible anymore. His heart had already chosen, even if his mind screamed against it. At the edge of the forest, he found an old hunter's cabin. The walls were cracked, the roof half fallen, but it was shelter. He pushed the door open with his shoulder, dust rising as if the place itself had been waiting for someone to return. He laid her gently on the rough wooden bed inside. She stirred, her eyes opening just enough to see the strange place around her. Where am I?" she whispered. "Safe," he said. For now, he lit a small lantern, the glow painting the room in warm colors. For the first time since the battle, her silver skin wasn't reflecting fire or blood, but soft light. She looked less like an enemy and more like something fragile, almost human. He took water from an old pot, wetting a cloth and cleaning her wound carefully. She winced but didn't pull away. Instead, her eyes followed his movements closely. "You fight my people," she said softly. "You kill them without mercy. Why? Why are you saving me?" He paused, his hand trembling for a moment. "Because I don't want to see another life wasted tonight." "Not yours." Her lips curved into a faint, almost broken smile. "You're strange for a human." He gave no answer. Instead, he tightened the cloth around her wound. She gasped quietly, her hand reaching out, gripping his wrist without thinking. The touch shocked them both. For her, it was the first time anyone had touched her with care. For him, it was the first time his enemy's hand felt warm, alive, not alien, not different, just another soul. The silence grew heavy, broken only by the sound of the wind outside. She pulled her hand back slowly, her cheeks warming. "Your people would kill me if they knew," she whispered. "And they would kill you too, I know," he said simply. His voice was steady, but inside, his chest burned with conflict. He had no reason to trust her, no reason to risk everything, and yet, he already had. The lantern light flickered across her face, catching the tear still dried on her cheek. She looked at him again, this time not as a soldier, but as a man. Her voice trembled, but her words were sharp. "You are not like the others." He finally met her gaze. "And you're not like the monsters I was told about." For a moment, the war outside didn't exist. It was just the two of them, trapped in a wooden cabin, their worlds colliding in silence. But the moment shattered with a sound. A branch cracked outside, then another, footsteps. He grabbed his weapon instantly, his body tense. He moved to the window, peeking into the darkness. Shadows moved between the trees, slow, careful, searching. His heart pounded. Patrols. The enemy was hunting. He turned back to her. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Her wide eyes searched his face, fear trembling in them. She nodded, pressing her lips shut, her body weak but her spirit alert. The footsteps grew closer, crunching against the dry leaves outside. He held his breath, his finger ready on the trigger. But his mind raced. If they found her here, if they saw him protecting her, there would be no escape. Her voice came so soft it was almost nothing, but it cut through the air. "If they come inside, leave me, save yourself." He looked at her, his eyes burning. "Don't ever say that again." Her chest rose and fell quickly, her silver eyes glistening. In that whisper of defiance, she realized something: he wasn't going to leave her, no matter the cost. Outside, the shadows stopped. For a long moment, silence ruled the forest again. Then, slowly, the footsteps faded away into the distance. He lowered his weapon, his body finally relaxing, though his heart still raced like fire. The princess let out a shaky breath. She had been ready for death, ready for abandonment. But once again, this human had chosen the impossible. He had chosen her. As the lantern burned low, the night stretched long and silent, but inside the broken cabin, a dangerous bond was already forming, one neither of them could escape, and both of them knew this was only the beginning. The forest was never truly silent, even in the dead of night. There were whispers, the creak of trees, the hiss of wind, the rustle of unseen creatures moving through the undergrowth. But tonight, another sound cut through the darkness, heavy boots, slow, deliberate steps. The enemy was hunting inside the broken cabin. The lantern had burned out. Only the pale silver of the moon crept through the cracks in the wood. He crouched by the window, weapon in hand, every sense sharpened. His eyes scanned the trees. Shadows shifted, too many, too careful. "They're close," he whispered. The princess sat weakly on the bed, her silver hair falling over her shoulders. Her body trembled, but her eyes were sharp with fear. She could hear it to the low voices, the click of weapons, the sound of soldiers trained to track. Her own people. They were not here to save her. They were here to drag her back in chains, or leave her dead if she resisted. Her lips trembled. "If they find me, they'll kill us both." He glanced at her, his jaw set. "Then we don't let them find us." The footsteps drew closer, crunching leaves, breaking twigs. One shadow passed so near that the outline of a helmet flashed under the moon. He cursed under his breath. They couldn't stay. The cabin was a trap now. He moved quickly to her side. "We have to go." She tried to rise, but pain shot through her wound. Her legs gave out, and she nearly collapsed. His arms caught her before she hit the ground. She looked up at him, her breath uneven. "You can't carry me and fight them," she whispered. He tightened his hold. "Watch me." Without waiting, he lifted her against his chest. Her arms wrapped weakly around his neck, her face pressing close to his shoulder as he pushed open the back door, stepping into the cold night. The forest swallowed them instantly, shadows deep and endless. Every step he took was careful, silent, his boots avoiding dry leaves and snapping branches. The princess could feel his heartbeat pounding against her cheek, steady and strong despite the danger. Behind them, the hunters spread out. A voice barked, orders in her native tongue. "Search, kill, leave nothing behind." She shivered. She knew their ways. Once they caught a scent, they never stopped until blood was spilled. They moved deeper, weaving through the trees, until he found a cave hidden by thick roots and rocks. He pushed inside quickly, lowering her onto the cold stone floor. The cave was damp, the air heavy, but it was dark and deep enough to hide them for now. He crouched at the entrance, weapon ready, watching the faint glow of enemy lights passing between the trees. The princess pressed her back to the wall, her breathing ragged. She hated the fear in her chest, but more than that, she hated the thought that he might die protecting her. "Why do you risk this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "You could walk away now. They would never know." He didn't turn to her. His eyes stayed locked on the forest, his finger tight on the trigger. "Because I would know." The words struck her deeper than any blade. Her chest tightened. In all her life, surrounded by power and soldiers sworn to her, no one had ever said something so simple, so human. She shifted slightly, her body leaning against the cold rock. A faint smile trembled on her lips despite the fear. "You're a fool," she whispered. "Maybe," he said, glancing back at her, "but you're still alive because of it." Their eyes met. For a long heartbeat, the world outside the war, the soldiers, the danger vanished. In the stillness of the cave, there was only the warmth of his stare and the fragile bond growing between them. But then, a sound shattered it. Boots, heavy, slow. Directly outside, the cave entrance filled with shifting light as a patrol passed dangerously close. He froze, every muscle tight, finger hovering on the trigger, She pressed her hand to her lips, holding her breath, her eyes wide. The soldier outside stopped. Silence. The beam of light paused, sweeping dangerously near the cave opening. Her hand trembled. Without thinking, she reached for him in the dark, her fingers brushing his arm. The touch steadied her, and maybe it steadied him too. The light lingered, searching. Then, finally, it turned away. The footsteps faded back into the forest. He exhaled slowly, his body relaxing at last. He turned back to her, his face shadowed but his eyes burning bright. "They won't stop," he said. "They'll keep hunting until they find you." She swallowed, fear and hope clashing in her chest. "Then I suppose I have no choice but to trust you." Her words were soft, but heavy, carrying more weight than any royal command. He didn't reply. He only nodded once, firmly, and sat back against the cave wall, weapon across his lap. The night was far from over, and somewhere deep in the darkness, both of them knew this hunt was only the beginning of something neither could escape. The cave was still, its silence heavy like stone pressing down on them. Outside, the forest had grown quiet again, but both of them knew the silence was dangerous. Hunters never stopped. He sat near the entrance, his back against the cold rock, weapon resting on his lap. His eyes remained sharp, but fatigue pulled at his body. The long night had taken its toll. Behind him, she sat against the wall, her silver hair tangled, her royal dress torn and stained with blood. In the dim light, the small broken crown beside her glimmered faintly. She picked it up with trembling hands, staring at it for a long moment before whispering, "It's worthless now." He turned his head slightly. "What is this?" she said, holding up the bent crown. Her voice carried both bitterness and sorrow. "A symbol of power, a symbol of family. Yet when I needed them most, they cast me aside." His brows furrowed. He hadn't expected her to speak so openly. "Cast you aside? You're their princess." She laughed quietly, but there was no joy in it. "Princess only in name. To them, I was never a daughter. I was a weapon, a bargaining piece, a pawn." The weight of her words filled the cave. For the first time, she wasn't speaking as an alien or a prisoner. She was speaking as someone broken, someone human in her own way. Her eyes lowered. "Do you know why they wanted me on the battlefield? Not because I could lead, not because I could inspire. They wanted me there to die. My death would have united the clans under rage. They wanted my blood to be the fire that burned your people." He stared at her, shock flashing in his eyes. He had thought she was the enemy's jewel, their most precious bloodline. But now, she was nothing more than a sacrifice to them. She dropped the crown onto the cave floor, the metal clattering against stone. Her voice trembled. "I was never meant to live. That is the truth of my crown." The silence stretched heavy again. He looked at her for a long moment, seeing not a royal enemy, but a woman who had been abandoned by her own. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, steady. "Then they're fools." Her head snapped up, surprise flashing in her silver eyes. "What?" He leaned forward, his gaze firm. "Any kingdom that throws away someone like you doesn't deserve to stand." For a moment, she couldn't speak. No one, not even in her childhood, had ever spoken to her like that. Not her generals, not her father, not her court. To them, she had always been duty, bloodline, and sacrifice. To this human, she was someone. Her lips trembled, and tears welled in her eyes. She turned her face away quickly, hiding the weakness that her royal blood had taught her to despise. "Why do you say such things? You should hate me. You should kill me." He shook his head. "I don't see an enemy. I see someone who deserves more than chains and betrayal." Her breath caught. She pressed a hand to her chest, as if trying to hold back the storm of emotions that rose inside her. She wanted to argue, to deny it, but the warmth in his voice broke every wall she had built around her heart. For a while, they sat in silence, the only sound the soft drip of water deep in the cave. Then, suddenly an explosion. The ground trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. Both of them tensed instantly. He grabbed his weapon, moving to the entrance. Through the trees outside, a glow rose fire, spreading fast. She pushed herself weakly to her feet, panic in her eyes. "They found us." His grip on the weapon tightened. "Then we move. Now." But as he looked back at her, standing fragile and wounded against the cave wall, he realized something. She wasn't just another life to protect anymore. She was the reason he was fighting against everything he had been taught to believe. The broken crown still lay on the ground, shining faintly in the firelight creeping in from outside. She looked at it one last time before whispering, almost to herself, "I am no longer their princess." He met her gaze, fierce and unyielding. "Then be yours." And as the fire outside grew closer, they both knew this was no longer a fight for survival. This was the beginning of a war against fate itself. The cave shook again, dust falling like rain from the ceiling. The blast outside had set the forest alight. Smoke crept in, choking the air, and the crackle of fire grew louder by the second. He pulled her close, his voice firm but low. "We can't stay. The fire will swallow this place, and the hunters will follow." She nodded weakly, her silver eyes wide with fear, but there was something else to trust. She no longer questioned him, she only followed. He slung his weapon across his back and bent down, lifting her into his arms once more. Her body was light, fragile, but every step he took felt like carrying the weight of two worlds. As they stepped out, the forest had turned into a nightmare. Flames crawled up the trees, shadows leapt like demons, and the air burned hot against their skin. In the distance, voices shouted, hunters driving the fire forward, forcing prey into the open, forcing them out. "They're hurting us," he muttered, his jaw tight. "They want you cornered." Her arms tightened around his neck. "Then don't let them." He smirked despite the danger, eyes sharp. "That's the plan." He moved fast, weaving through burning trees, every step calculated, every breath measured. Smoke stung his lungs, but he didn't slow. The princess's head rested weakly against his chest, but her eyes stayed open, watching him, even wounded, even near collapse. She saw the way he carried her, not as a burden, but as if her life mattered more than his own. Behind them, the enemy closed in. Shouts grew louder, lights flashing through the smoke. A gunshot cracked, the bullet sparking off stone near his feet. He cursed, ducking low and sprinting into thicker shadows. The forest floor dipped suddenly, revealing a narrow ravine. Without hesitation, he slid down the slope, his boots skidding against loose earth until they landed at the bottom. The sound of rushing water filled the air, a river, dark and wild. The current was fierce, white foam crashing over jagged rocks. Her eyes widened. "We can't cross that. It will kill us." He looked down at her, sweat and ash streaking his face, his chest heaving. "If we stay, they will kill us. I'll take the river." Her lips parted, fear and disbelief colliding. "You'd risk drowning for me." He leaned close, his words rough but steady. "I'd risk everything for you." Before she could answer, the shouts above grew nearer. Flashlights cut through the smoke. Hunters. He tightened his grip and stepped into the freezing water. The current struck instantly, nearly ripping them away, but his hold on her didn't falter. She clung to him, her face pressed against his neck as the river swallowed them. The world became chaos. Water roared in his ears, the current smashing against rocks, dragging them into darkness. Every muscle in his body screamed as he fought to keep them both above the surface. She gasped, her voice breaking. "You'll die, let me go, never." He shouted over the roar, his arms locked tighter around her, his strength fueled not by survival alone, but by something deeper, something unspoken between them. The current hurled them downstream, spinning, crashing, until finally it threw them into calmer water. Gasping, choking, he dragged them toward the bank, his fingers clawing into the mud as he pulled her onto solid ground. They collapsed together, soaked and trembling. He lay on his back, chest heaving, lungs burning, while she lay across him, her hair plastered to his face, her breath shallow but alive. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the river's roar and the crackle of distant fire filled the night. Then, slowly, she raised her head. Her silver eyes shimmered with tears, her voice breaking. No one has ever carried me through death itself." He met her gaze, his hand lifting to brush wet strands of hair from her face. "Get used to it," he whispered, "because I'm not letting you go." Her lips parted, trembling with words she didn't yet know how to speak. But before the moment could deepen, A sound tore through the night, metal striking stone. They both froze. From the shadows above the riverbank, a red beam of light cut through. The mist, a sniper's scope, locked on them. The red beam of the sniper's scope glowed in the mist like the eye of death itself. He saw it, and his body moved faster than thought. Down, he shouted, rolling with her across the wet mud just as the shot cracked through the night. The bullet tore into stone where her head had been moments ago, sparks flying. Another shot rang out, this one closer. He gritted his teeth, pressing her against the ground, shielding her with his own body. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. Her voice shook against his chest. "They'll kill you because of me," he whispered, fiercely into her ear, his heart pounding like thunder. "I'd rather take the bullet than see it touch you." The sniper reloaded. He knew they had only seconds. He pulled her to her feet and dragged her toward the jagged rocks by the riverbank. Using them as cover, another bullet whistled past, striking the mud so close he felt the sting of dirt against his face. His lungs burned. His muscles screamed, but he didn't stop. With every shot, death hunted closer. Finally, they slipped behind a large stone outcrop. Shielded for the moment, he crouched low, holding her trembling body against him. Her breathing was shallow, her lips pale. The wound in her side had reopened. During the escape, blood staining her clothes anew, he pressed his hand against it, his palm hot with her life spilling out. "Stay with me," he demanded, his voice breaking. Her eyes fluttered, weak but focused on him. Why do you fight so hard? I'm not your people. I'm not your war." His chest tightened. He wanted to say it what his heart had been screaming since the night he found her. But before he could, she lifted her hand and touched his face, her cold fingers brushing against his cheek. "No one has ever held me like this," she whispered. "No one has ever wanted me to live." His throat closed, but his voice came rough and raw. "Then listen to me, princess. You will live, because I refuse to lose you." Another bullet struck the rock above them, showering them with fragments. He cursed under his breath. They couldn't stay here. The sniper would pin them until the hunters arrived. Her hand clutched his shirt weakly, her voice barely audible. "If I don't make it, promise me you'll run. Promise me you'll live." He seized her face in his hands, forcing her eyes to lock on his. "Don't you dare talk like that. You hear me? Don't you dare." For a moment, everything around them, the gunfire, the fire, the river, faded into silence. Only his eyes on hers, burning with a fire stronger than any bullet, stronger than fate. And then, with a trembling breath, she whispered words she had never spoken to anyone before. "I don't want to die, not when I've just begun to feel alive with you." The world seemed to stop. His heart thundered in his chest, the weight of her confession crashing into him like the river itself. But there was no time to answer. The sniper fired again. He grabbed her, pulling her close, and made his choice. If death wanted her, it would have to take him first. With a roar, he threw himself into the river again. Holding her tight, the current swallowed them in darkness, carrying them away from the red beam of death. Water roared in his ears, but his mind repeated only one thought: "She will not die, not while I still breathe." The river carried them far, smashing them against rocks, pulling them through shadows and foam, until finally it spat them out into calmer waters. He dragged her to the bank, gasping, every muscle burning. His chest heaved as he laid her gently. On the wet grass, moonlight shone down, silver across her face, making her look both fragile and unearthly. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but alive. "We survived," she whispered. He brushed the wet strands of hair from her face, his voice rough but steady. "I told you I wouldn't let you die for a moment." Silence filled the night. The fire was far now, the hunters left behind. The sniper's scope gone. Only the two of them remained alone, broken, yet together. She turned her head slightly, her lips trembling. "Do you know what my people would call this? Shame, betrayal." He leaned closer, his hand on hers. "Then let them, because I don't care what they call it. I care about you." Her chest rose and fell, her heartbeat quick against his palm. She stared at him, seeing the firelight in his eyes even when no. Fire burned nearby. Tears welled in her eyes again. "I was born in chains, even as a princess. I was never free, But with you, even in the mud, even bleeding, I feel something I never felt before." He tightened his grip on her hand, his voice a whisper carried by the night. "Then don't let it go. Don't go back to them. Stay with me." Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her body trembled, her tears falling freely now. And then he said it. The words that changed everything. "Marry me." The world stopped. The forest, the river, the stars all fell silent. It was just him, his voice raw and honest, and her eyes, wide with disbelief. Her breath caught. You would take me, even knowing what I am, even knowing the blood between our people." He leaned even closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "I don't care about blood. I don't care about war. I care about the woman I carried through fire and river, the woman I refused to let die. I care about you." Her tears spilled faster, her hands rising weakly to his face. She searched his eyes, as if hoping to find a lie, but there was none, only the truth, burning bright. And then, with a sob breaking her voice, she whispered the word that shattered the chains of her life. Yes, she turned her face into his chest, her tears soaking his shirt. He held her tightly, as if the whole world might try to steal her away. For the first time in her life, she wasn't a pawn, wasn't a weapon, wasn't a sacrifice. She was his. The night sky above seemed wider, brighter, as if the stars themselves had witnessed the impossible. A human and an alien princess choosing love over war. But as he held her, whispering promises against her hair, a thought lingered. In the silence, the galaxy would not forgive this. Enemies would come. Battles would follow. Yet none of that mattered now, because in this moment, under the moon and the broken sky, she had said yes, and nothing could take that away.